Hey, I'm ZSH Plays, and today we're attempting the most complex build we've ever done. Penguins and sea lions in one huge habitat with an underwater tunnel for the guests. Welcome to Tierra del Fuego. This is a real habitat, or rather it will be in 2026, because at Zoo Leipzig in Germany, they've been building this habitat for the past 6 years, and now we are going to build it in Planet Zoo. Let's go. Normally, we do our builds in a zoo, but this one is so enormous, there's no room for it in our zoos, so we've got this building site, and we're going to build it right here. We're digging out the terrain for the huge water body, which is the centerpiece of this habitat. The way it works is you enter onto a beach with sea lions, then you go onto a beach with penguins, and then you go through an underwater tunnel with penguins to your left and sea lions to your right. And then the tunnel curves and you're completely surrounded by sea lions before exiting back on the beach. It looks absolutely amazing, but it's going to be a nightmare to build. Once the water's in, what we need to do is the hardest part of this build, which is a working underwater tunnel for the guests. Now, building an underwater tunnel in Planet Zoo isn't particularly difficult. As long as you go to the path option menu and turn on tunneling, and your paths are deep enough, you can get them to go under the water and the guests will use it. The issue with it is, when you actually walk through the path yourself, what happens is this. You are underwater because there's no official way to do this in the game, but there is a technique that enables you to build these without having the underwater effect as you walk through the tunnel. So this is how we build it. Once we've dug out the water, we're going to use the terrain stamp tool to add terrain back in where we want the underwater tunnel to be. We've turned the cylinder onto its side and we're going to use that to draw out the tunnel here. So we've put the exit in by the sea lions, and now we're going to draw out a curve through to where the entrance is going to be by the penguins. The height needs to be above guest head height, and then we can put the water back in and move on to the paths. We'll place a path as close to the water and the tunnel as we can, and then we need to go 7 pieces of path in the opposite direction to where the tunnel's going to go. And then we're going to delete all the path except for the last piece that we placed down. Then we're going to go back towards the water, but using the decline option so that we are going downwards until we get to the level that we need to be. And with tunneling on, once we get to the start of the tunnel, we can go straight again and just draw the path right through that terrain that we put in earlier. That is probably the most counterintuitive thing I have ever said, but the result is this. We can now walk through this tunnel and there is no underwater effect. Ignore how terrible it looks. We're going to sort all of that out. This is the key. We are no longer underwater. I want to give a big thank you to Iben from the Bro Nation Discord for helping me out with that. He sent me some instructions because I was really struggling. Right, time to make that tunnel look good. So we're going to use the mud pillar technique to get a curved glass roof that's going to go over the top of the tunnel. So we'll just take one of the standalone glass panes, start curving it, get it down to roughly where we want it to start. This little wooden marker is how high the terrain is compared to the path. So we're going to want a wall that goes up to there to cover up the terrain, and then we want the glass to start above that and curve up and over the path. We'll copy the glass pane above itself and rotate it once with angle snap turned on, and then we'll copy it again and rotate it again and keep doing that until we've got a pane that is above the mud pillar. There we go. And then we can start putting a wall in. So we're going to take one of the pieces from the tropical pack and position this under the glass. It's really nice texture on this piece, and once we've recolored it, I think it's going to do a great job as an underwater tunnel wall. We need more than one of these though. As you can see, it's not tall enough to reach down to the ground, so we'll just copy another one underneath it, get it in the right place, and then we can start seeing if this is going to work. So we'll select everything, rotate it, and you can see we've got a complete tunnel here. There's a little gap in the middle, but I want something down the middle to act as a support for the glass anyway, so that's fine. We're going to use one of these marquee beams to build a little support structure in there, and we'll use them again to join the glass onto the concrete. Time for some details. We'll get that little piece from the America's Animal pack to look like it's fastening the glass onto the wall, and then we'll get some more beams up here so that each pane of glass has its own level of support. And then we're going to drop an ambient speaker in, playing some underwater sound effects to really sell the illusion that you are in the underwater tunnel. Next up, we're going to replace the path in the tunnel with a path we've never used before, the aquatic path, because this texture actually makes it look like light is dappling down from the sun through the water and onto the path. Really helps sell the illusion. And then we can bring our tunnel roof down that we've just made, line this up to cover up that crazy pathing you get when you build an underwater tunnel. This one little group is going to turn it from looking like an absolute nightmare to looking like a real underwater tunnel. And then we just need to repeat this down the length of the path, rotating it each time so that it's always exactly lined up with those curbs there. It's going to start looking really nice once we've got this in. Let's check it out. There's one issue with this underwater trick. Because the underwater effects don't play, it doesn't quite feel like you're underwater, but I think I have a solution for that. Let's test it out. Something I discovered a long time ago is you can simulate an underwater feel with dandelion seeds. If you put the dandelion seed special effects in, because it creates particles, if we check back on our tunnel, now it actually feels like we're underwater. Let's have a quick look at our progress so far. You can see our tunnel glinting away in the sunlight there. Let's move on and start getting these habitats underway. This marker shows where the two habitats are going to be divided, and we're going to divide them with rocks. One of the main features of the real designs for this habitat is the insane amount of rock work in there. I don't think I've ever seen so much rock work in one place. And what we need to do is build one really nice set of rocks that we can then copy, modify, and use to build the entire habitat. If you're wondering where I've got all the details for this habitat from, they're actually on Zoo Leipzig's website. If you go to their South America section and then scroll to the bottom, their plans for Tierra del Fuego are in there. There's a 5-minute long video from the architects who designed this habitat on there, showing you the whole thing. It's pretty basic in terms of the look. They're obviously not using Planet Zoo, but it gives you a really good idea of what it's going to look like. So I've taken a lot of inspiration from there and then added in a few of my own touches as well, just to spruce things up a bit. I'll put a link to that page in the website in the description of the video if you want to go and check that out yourself, along of course with a link to this completed habitat, which will be on the workshop as of tomorrow. Alright, I'm happy with the basics of that lump of rock there. We're going to use that as the building block for all the rocks on this habitat. We'll sink a few natural rocks into it as well, just to mix it up a bit, give it a bit more texture, and then we can just start copying it along the boundaries of the habitat like this. And we'll also use it as borders for the habitats in the water and on the land. This piece will start creating the exit to the underwater tunnel. This piece will start creating the entrance to the underwater tunnel. And then these pieces here are what's going to keep the penguins and the sea lions separate when they're in the water. Let's take a look at how the penguins is shaping up. I've changed the color and the transparency on the water. That's starting to look really nice now. Let's get the rest of the paths in. All the paths in this habitat are going to be made of sand, except for the ones in the tunnel itself. So you get a really subtle look, and it kind of sells the whole beach vibe that we've got going on here. And we're going to snake them round in a nice natural fashion down through various viewing points for the sea lions. There's a couple of different beaches for them, past where the seats are going to go for animal talks, and then joining on to the penguins. You can see the whole layout there. There is so much still to build. I think it's time for some foliage. During my research, I saw some absolutely amazing trees in Tierra del Fuego. They're called nodophagus. No idea if that's how it's pronounced, but there's 3 species of them. They're a member of the beech family, and they are really gnarly. And I really wanted to get some of those in here. We don't have them in the game, so I'm going to recreate them as best I can using some Scots pine and a bristlecone pine buried into the ground, and then we're going to make the trees grow out of the branches of the bristlecone pine and cover the rest of it up with some bushes and shrubs. It gives us a really unique looking tree. Tierra del Fuego is pretty much the southernmost tip of South America, so it is closer to Antarctica than it is Brazil. It is not hot there. It is a subpolar climate, so that's the kind of palette that I've gone for here. And speaking of Tierra del Fuego, I should probably explain the animal choices in this habitat. Amongst the many species that live in Tierra del Fuego are South American sea lions and Magellanic penguins. When it opens, the real Tierra del Fuego will be using Californian sea lions and Humboldt penguins as substitutes, and we will be using the California sea lion and African penguins. Alright, the foliage is starting to look really nice now. It starts to bring the area together. Let's move on and start building the penguin habitat. One of the most important parts of the habitat is the entrance to the underwater tunnel. So we're going to tidy that up here. We've got those rocks we placed in earlier. We're just going to put in an archway and some extra rocks and start melding this entrance into the walls on either side so it looks nice and seamless, and then we can get working on the viewing points for the guests. This is the edge of the guest path here. It's going to give an amazing view into the penguin habitat. The penguins will be right next to them, so we just want to build quite a subtle little fence to keep them separated. So we'll just use a pane of glass and then some wood, give it quite a kind of beachy light wood colour, and then we'll just copy it along the path and adjust the groups that we've made so that they join together seamlessly. Speaking of seamless, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Wow, what a segue. That's the fence done. We'll just move on and put some rocks in and a little bit of grass just to fill in the spaces between where we want the guests to walk. And if we take a look at it, This habitat is starting to look really nice. In order to actually be a habitat though, it's going to need some barriers, so let's put those in. We're just going to have a little bit of glass along here right at the back where the keepers will get in, and then everything else is going to be null barriers. The habitats will meet halfway across the underwater tunnel, so we can have the different animals on both sides of the guest, and then we'll just take it back round to that glass we put in. And now we can see we've got a proper penguin habitat, and a pretty sizable one at that. We'll just do some tidying up on the glass here, place some more plants in throughout the habitat, use some rocks to join the terrain onto the underwater tunnel, recolor the rocks that are underwater green so they give more of an underwater feel, and from back here the habitat's really starting to take shape now. Next I'm going to drop in a whale skeleton because this was in the architect's video that I watched. This is off the workshop by Wout, no idea how you pronounce it, but thank you for building this, it's very cool. And then we'll move on to adding some detailing to the boundary between the penguins and the sea lions. So we're going to have decking above the tunnel which the sea lions and the keepers would have access to. So we'll put it in underwater so we can follow the line of the tunnel more easily, and then we'll just bring it all up to the top. There we go. This is another nice little focal point within the habitat. We'll put some poles in to support it, and then some boards around the sides, and then we'll make a little custom fence to go along it. This is just a couple of pieces, I think it's from the Indonesian wood set, and some rope, but I really like it, and I decided to use this throughout the entire habitat as the boundary for the paths for the guests as well. And then we're going to add the center of the underwater tunnel in. This is the point where the guests go from having penguins on one side and sea lions on the other to being completely surrounded by sea lions. So we want something to differentiate the two different parts of the tunnel, and these rocks will do the job nicely. And these rocks also form a little platform above the water where the sea lions can haul out and rest. The final thing to do here is to add some mesh above the tunnel and below the decking to stop the penguins and sea lions mixing underwater as well. We'll copy that all the way along down there, and then we'll drop in an underwater fish feeder and some other enrichment items on land for the penguins. As always, we'll position the enrichment items to get the animals to where we want them to spend their time. Build some little kelp using the underwater temple plant. We'll put loads of these on both sides of the habitat, and that's the penguins complete. I think the light green water and the light grey of the rocks go together really nicely. Let's move over to the other side of the area and build the sea lion habitat. We've already done most of the groundwork for this habitat. Obviously we want both sides of it to look pretty similar, so we're going to concentrate now just on the differences. So this little pile of rocks here is going to surround the first viewing beach for the guests, which will be to the right of it, and then we'll sort out the paths and the viewing for the guests. So in between the two glass viewing that we've built, we're going to have a spot where they can see the sea lions over rocks, using heightened paths so they're quite low on the guest side but much too high for the sea lions to get over on their side. And then in the original architect's video I was looking at, the separation between the guests and the sea lions appeared to mainly be a couple of birch branches lying on the floor. And if you've ever seen a male sea lion, that's not really going to do the trick, but I quite like the look of it, so we're going to put those in as well as the glass. And then we're going to build some concrete platforms for them with a nice sinuous shape. We'll do that manually using these plaster blocks and then fill the rest of it in. These are something you often see in sea lion habitats. It enables you to exactly control the terrain and where they can go and where they can't go. So we're just going to make one of these in a nice shape, and then we can use that throughout the habitat. We'll even reuse it later on in one of the guest areas. We use one of the tower pieces to fill it in. And once we've got one of them, then we can just copy that, get some steps in going from the top of the habitat down into the water. I think they fit in nicely with the rocks. As long as you rotate it each time you use it, you can always get more than one use out of any piece that you've built. And now we can just copy these across until we filled in the rest of the habitat with them. We should probably let the keepers in as well. So I've got a keeper gate hidden away in this wall here, and we're just going to keep moving these rocks until we expose the gate. And then we can get a really flat rock and put that over the door itself, and get one of the doors you often see in zoos, or rather don't see in zoos, where you can't really tell there's a door there, but if you look really carefully you can. We use some more flat rocks to achieve that. Use one of the pieces from the America's Animal pack to create a door handle, put it the other way around, that looks better, there we go. Sink that into the wall, and that is a sea lion habitat complete. Let's have a quick look. We're onto the final stage of the build now, which is taking care of the guests. The real habitat is going to have a massive seating stand for the guests. I don't know if they're planning on having sea lion shows. I kind of hope not. I'm not a big fan of those. But I want to have our own seating here. Going to do it in a slightly different way, but I want it to actually work. So we're going to use the guest seats with a raised path here. You can only place these on paths. You can always place a path, put the seat down and then delete it, but I want the guests to actually use them. So we're going to get some paths up to it, and we'll use some of the concrete shapes that we made a minute ago to join the paths onto this. We don't want to see any of Planet Zoo's hideous raised paths, so we'll cover them all up with those. And there we go. I wanted quite a clean look for this, and I'm pleased with how that's turned out. The whole area is really starting to come together now, but there is one spot at least that needs some more work. You can just see it coming into view here, and that is the exit to the underwater tunnel. The planting looks good, but where's the rest of it? Let's build it now. We need a ceiling first of all, so we're going to use the same mud pillar technique as before to build a circle, just using some plain plaster pieces, but then we're going to cut it in half and then rotate it to form a ceiling, put a light on it, and this will go nicely in there, and we use some plaster panels to join it up onto the terrain above it, and then we're going to make it look a bit more impressive with some of the rocks that we already built. We'll put a ceiling in with some flat plaster pieces, drop some of our rock arrangement on it, and there we go. Now we have a proper exit to the underwater tunnel, and we can move on to the last major part of the build, some staff buildings. A facility like this would obviously need lots of behind the scenes stuff. Now these are all going to be hidden away behind the huge piles of rock that we have throughout the habitat, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, so literally just build one grid piece with wood and some plaster trim, and we can build pretty much the entire buildings out of those, drop on a roof and a couple of windows, and we're done. Tierra del Fuego is so close to completion. There is just one more thing we need to put in: signage. We're going to create a banner using 3 of the smallest square screen panels. We'll put them above each other and then take some graphics that I've created to spread across the 3 billboards, and that is our massive habitat complete. Let's go and explore it. The first guests are arriving at Tierra del Fuego, and here is what it looks like. The animals are in. See our sea lion friends there. They're looking pretty sleepy at the moment. Let's get some food and wake them up. There we go. I love building for sea lions, one of my favourite animals to build for. But they're not the only animals in here. Let's check out the penguins. They're so cute. Here's their beach with the guests looking on, and we'll follow them down into the water, swimming past the tunnel, and then out on their platform float. I love watching all the penguins swimming around in here. Time to go into the centerpiece of the habitat, the underwater tunnel. There's another custom sign there to let people know where to go and build anticipation. And here we are. I am so pleased that this works. I've been working on it for about 4 weeks, I think, in between episodes of Belmont Zoo. And especially the underwater tunnel, it was not easy, but I'm very pleased with the final result. Let's leave the tunnel, go back outside, and check out the final thing to see, the animal talks. Guests are getting up onto the seats. We've got our educator in place. And there we go. That is Tierra del Fuego. Thank you so much for watching as always. Thank you especially to Iben on Bro Nation for giving me some tips on getting the underwater tunnel working. If you want to put this in your zoos, this will be available on the workshop tomorrow. The link is in the description. I would love to see it in your zoo, so if you want to show me, join the Discord and post some screenshots in there. I really hope you enjoyed that. I will see you again next week for some more Planet Zoo. Bye.